In this series of short videos, we will be introducing you to the Military Aviation Preservation Society, or MAPS Air Museum, and some of the aircraft and displays that are located at our facility in Greene, Ohio. We hope that these presentations enhance your appreciation of history and those who lived it. Man's fascination with flight and a desire to fly has always been with us. A quote attributed to Leonardo da Vinci gives you only one view of this obsession. It reads, "Once you have tasted flight, you will forever walk the earth with your eyes turned skyward, for there you have been, and there you will always long to return." At MAPS, the history of aviation is more than just airplanes. It is about those who have dreamed of flying, those who ultimately made those dreams a reality, and those that have experienced the freedom of flight. We hope to share that and more with you in these video presentations. We hope to cover the general background of each type of aircraft, as well as the history of the actual airframe that we have here at the museum. In some cases, we have dedicated specific aircraft to local men and women. If this is the case, we will discuss why we decided to dedicate an aircraft to them. In this video, we will be introducing you to the first American attack helicopter, the Bell AH-1 Cobra gunship. The AH-1 Cobra was a two-bladed, single-engined attack helicopter manufactured by Bell Helicopter. The AH-1 was also referred to as the UE Cobra or Snake. While the helicopter was already being developed into a viable battlefield contributor during the final days of World War II, it was not until the Korean War that its usefulness was realized. During the war in Vietnam, the helicopter finally assumed a central role in combat operations. The iconic American helicopter of the Vietnam War was the Bell UH-1 or UE series. The UH-1 made the theory of air cavalry practical, as the new tactics called for U.S. forces to be highly mobile across a wide area. Unlike before, they would not stand and fight long battles, and they would not stay and hold positions. Instead, the plan was that the troops carried by fleets of UH-1s would range across the country to fight the enemy at times and places of their own choosing. It soon became clear that the unarmed troop helicopters were vulnerable to ground fire from enemy forces, particularly as they came down to drop their troops in a landing zone. Without friendly fire support from artillery or other ground forces, the only way to protect a landing zone was from the air, preferably with an aircraft that could closely escort the transport helicopters and remain over the landing zone as the battle progressed. By 1962, a small number of UH-1s were converted to serve this role, armed with multiple machine guns and rocket mounts. The armed UH-1 was only an interim solution, for it lacked appropriate crew protection and survivability that the modern battlefield required. Bell had been investigating helicopter gunships since the late 1950s. In 1962, it created a mock-up of its D-255 helicopter gunship concept, named the Iroquois Warrior. The design incorporated a 40mm chin-mounted automatic grenade launcher, ventral 20mm cannon, and wing-mounted rocket and missile launchers. Its crew of two sat in tandem, helping to promote the slimmest of frontal profiles to make it a harder target to hit from the front by ground-based fire. In June of 1962, Bell displayed the mock-up to Army officials, hoping to gain funding for further development. The United States Army liked what it saw and awarded a contract for further development late in the year. An early test bed for the concept was born from a modified Bell Model 47, which became the Model 207 in its final form. The first flight of what was designated the Sioux Scout was in July of 1963. After evaluating the Model 207 in early 1964, the Army was impressed, but felt the helicopter was undersized, underpowered, and generally not suited for practical use. The situation in Vietnam was becoming even more perilous, with a greater American military commitment seen as unavoidable. In response, the Army proposed the Advanced Aerial Fire Support System as an open competition for its attack helicopter requirement. One of the key participants in this program was the Lockheed AH-56 Cheyenne, the company's sole attempt at helicopter design. At the same time, despite the Army's preference for the Advanced Aerial Fire Support Helicopter program, for which Bell Helicopter was not selected to compete, Bell stuck with their own idea of a smaller and lighter gunship. In January of 1965, Bell proceeded with a new design. Using the proven transmission, turboshaft engine, and rotor system of the UH-1 with the design philosophy of the Sioux Scout, Bell produced the Model 209. While work slowly progressed on the AH-56, the U.S. Army still needed an interim gunship for Vietnam, and it asked 5 companies to provide a quick solution. Submissions came in for armed variants of the Boeing Vertol ACH-47A, Cayman HH-2C Tomahawk, Piasecki 16H Pathfinder, Sikorsky S-61, and the Bell 209. Ultimately, the Lockheed AH-56 proved to be too sophisticated and was canceled in 1972 after 10 years of development. Bell's risk in following the Model 209 design philosophy had paid off. It was well ahead of the competition because of this gamble. On September 3, 1965, Bell rolled out its Model 209 prototype, and 4 days later, it made its maiden flight. In April of 1966, the Bell Model 209 won out against its competitors, and it was formally selected for production by the Army. The Army then signed the first production contract for 110 aircraft. As built, the Model 209 prototype featured a look not unlike its final attack helicopter form. The pilot and weapons specialist sat in a tandem cockpit with the pilot in the rear. The cockpit was large, with an armored canopy offering excellent vision while still providing a slim frontal profile. The single turboshaft engine was located behind the cockpit and drove a 2-blade main rotor and a twin-blade tail rotor in the rear mounted on a single vertical tail fin. The undercarriage was composed of retractable landing skids. Under the nose, there was a turret that could mount miniguns, cannons, or grenade launchers. The turret could pivot to both sides of the helicopter as well as up and down. The turret was controlled by the gunner seated at the front. The pilot in the rear could also fire the turret if it was locked in the forward position. Wing stubs, mounted on both sides of the fuselage, could mount additional weapons. The Army required some revisions to the Model 209 before production started. These included a lighter weight plexiglass canopy, a shift of the tail rotor from the left side of the tail to the right, fixed landing skids instead of the original retractable ones, and wider main rotor blades. The Cobra could carry almost 3,000 pounds of weapons on its stubbed wings. Recommended armament called for the chin turret to house 2 7.62 mm miniguns, or 2 40 mm grenade launchers, or a mix of the two. The wing stubs could support 7 or 19-shot 2.75-inch rocket pods, or 7.62 mm minigun pods, or a 20 mm cannon pod. Since the 1950s, Army helicopters had typically been named after Native American tribes. The AH-1 was the first U.S. Army helicopter not named for a Native American people, since the practice began with the H-13 Sioux and continued with the UH-1 Iroquois, AH-56 Cheyenne, OH-58 Kiowa, and all later helicopters. However, the first Army UH-1 UE unit dispatched to Vietnam called itself the Vien Long Cobras due to the high population of the snake species in that rural district. The serpent-specific call sign quickly caught on as a shorthand for armed helicopters. Model 209 was thus formally dubbed the UE Cobra by the Army, which had a political stake in stressing the Model 209's connection to the previous UE models. In the field, the new aircraft simply became the Cobra. By June of 1967, the first AH-1 UE Cobras had been delivered. UE models A through F were already in the Army inventory. Although originally designated the UH-1H, the A for attack designation was soon adopted. When the improved UH-1D became the UH-1H, the UE Cobra became the AH-1G, as it was considered a direct part of the existing UH-1 line. As a result, the first UE Cobra was designated the AH-1G and not the expected A. The first 6 AH-1Gs arrived at Bien Hoa Air Base, South Vietnam, on August 30, 1967, for combat testing by the U.S. Army's Cobra New Equipment Training Team. The first AH-1 unit, the 334th Assault Helicopter Company, became operational on October 6, 1967. AH-1 Cobras were in use by the Army during the Tet Offensive in 1968 and through the U.S. withdrawal from South Vietnam in 1973. During the Vietnam War, the AH-1 took over the role of assault helicopter and anti-armor missions from the UH-1D. Cobras provided fire support for ground forces, escorted transport helicopters and other roles, including aerial rocket artillery support in the 2 air mobile divisions. They also formed hunter-killer teams by pairing with the OH-6 or OH-58 Scout helicopters. In this team concept, the Scout helicopters would fly ahead of the main Cobra attack force to help reveal enemy positions. If the Scouts drew fire, the Cobra would strike at the then revealed enemy. In 1972, the AH-1Q was introduced, which significantly expanded the close air support capability of the Cobra with the addition of the M65 TOW, or tube-launched, optically tracked, wire-guided anti-armor missile subsystem. The TOW missile targeting system used a telescopic sight unit, laser-augmented tracking capability, thermal sights, and a forward-looking infrared camera system to allow for acquisition, launch, and tracking of all types of TOW missiles in all weather conditions. Following AH-1Q operational tests, a more powerful engine and transmission were added, as well as an upgrade to the 20mm chin gun, resulting in the AH-1S version in 1976. The U.S. Marine Corps used the AH-1G Cobras in Vietnam for a short time, but it preferred a twin-engine version for improved safety for over-water operations. It also wanted a more powerful turret-mounted weapon. At first, the Department of Defense had been reluctant to provide the Marines with a twin-engine version of the Cobra, in the belief that commonality with the Army's AH-1Gs outweighed the advantages of a different engine setup. However, the Marines won out and awarded Bell a contract for 49 twin-engine AH-1J Sea Cobras in May of 1968. The AH-1J also received a more powerful gun turret featuring a 3-barrel 20mm cannon similar in concept to the 6-barrel Vulcan cannon. From June to December 1972, during the closing months of the United States' involvement in the Vietnam War, the Marine Corps embarked the AH-1J Sea Cobra, assigned to Marine Attack Helicopter Squadron 369, aboard amphibious helicopter transports for sea-based attacks on the Ho Chi Minh Trail in North Vietnam. Bell built 1,116 AH-1Gs for the U.S. Army between 1967 and 1973, and the Cobras chalked up over 1 million operational hours in Vietnam. Out of the AH-1s delivered during that period, approximately 300 were lost to combat and accidents during the war. The Marine Corps requested greater load carrying capability and high temperatures for the Cobra in the 1970s. Bell used systems from its Model 309 to develop the AH-1T Improved Sea Cobra. This version, which first flew in 1969 and was introduced in 1971, had a lengthened tail and fuselage with an upgraded transmission and engines. 1,270 of this line were built in all. AH-1 Cobras were deployed for Operation Urgent Fury, the invasion of Grenada in 1983, flying close support and helicopter support missions. The Marines also deployed the AH-1 off the coast of Beirut, Lebanon in 1983 during that nation's civil war. Army Cobras participated in Operation Just Cause, the U.S. invasion of Panama in 1989. In the early 1980s, the U.S. Marine Corps sought a new helicopter, a more powerful version of the AH-1T. Deliveries of the AH-1W Super Cobra started in 1986 and totaled 179 new-built helicopters, plus 43 upgrades of the AH-1T. The last AH-1W was delivered in 1998. The Super Cobra was the first attack helicopter to carry the Sidewinder air-to-air missile, the Hellfire air-to-ground missile, and the Sidearm anti-radiation missile, in addition to the TOW missile system. Marine Corps Cobras provided escort in the Persian Gulf in the late 1980s while the Iran-Iraq War was ongoing. Marine Cobras from the USS Saipan flew top cover during an evacuation of U.S. and other foreign citizens from Liberia in 1990. In 1990 and 1991, during Operations Desert Shield and Desert Storm in the Gulf War, Cobras and Super Cobras deployed in a support role. The Marine Corps deployed 91 AH-1W Super Cobras and the U.S. Army 140 AH-1 Cobras. These were operated from forward dispersed air bases. Army Cobras provided support for U.S. humanitarian intervention during Operation Restore Hope in Somalia in 1992 and 1993. They were also employed during the U.S. invasion of Haiti in 1994. Marine Corps Cobras were used in U.S. military interventions in the former Yugoslavia in the 1990s, and 2 AH-1Ws assisted in the rescue of Air Force Captain Scott O'Grady after his F-16 was shot down on June 2, 1995, over Bosnia and Herzegovina by a surface-to-air missile. The U.S. Army phased out the AH-1 during the 1990s and retired the AH-1 from active service in March of 1999, offering them to NATO allies. The Army retired the AH-1 from the reserves in September of 2001, replaced by the Boeing AH-64 Apache in Army service. The Apache helicopter was introduced to the U.S. Army service in April of 1986. AH-1 Cobras continued to operate with the U.S. Marine Corps. Marine Cobras have also served in Operation Enduring Freedom in Afghanistan and Operation Iraqi Freedom in the conflict in Iraq. While new replacement aircraft were considered as an alternative to major upgrades of the AH-1 fleet, Marine Corps studies showed that an upgrade was the most affordable, most supportable, and most effective solution for the Marine Corps light attack helicopter mission. In 2003, the U.S. Forest Service acquired 25 retired AH-1s from the United States Army. These have been designated Bell 209s and are being referred to as the Firewatch Cobra. They have been equipped with infrared and low-light sensors and systems for real-time fire monitoring. The Florida Division of Forestry also acquired 3 AH-1s from the U.S. Army. Garlic Helicopters converted these surplus AH-1s for forest firefighting under the name Firesnake. They are equipped to carry water or a fire retardant system. The AH-1W is being replaced by the Bell AH-1Z Viper, which made its first flight in 2000. The AH-1Z completed sea trial flight testing in May of 2005. On October 15, 2005, the United States Marine Corps, through the Naval Air Systems Command, accepted delivery of the first AH-1Z production helicopter to enter the fleet. The AH-1Z was declared combat ready on September 30, 2010. The last AH-1W is expected to be replaced in 2020. The Bell AH-1Z Viper features several design changes. This version features a 4-bladed rotor, which reduces vibrations by up to 70% and significantly improves flying characteristics. The new system offered better performance, reduced noise, and improved battle damage tolerance. The AH-1Z's 2 redesigned wing stubs are longer, with each adding a wingtip station for additional ordnance or the addition of the longbow radar system. In late August of 2016, Marine AH-1W Cobras flying from USS Wasp started flying combat missions over Sirte, Libya against the group known as the Islamic State of Iraq and the Levant of Libya, providing close air support for friendly militias on the ground. In the later stages of the operation, AH-1Ws flew combat missions from the deck of the USS San Antonio after that ship replaced the USS Wasp. At the time this narrative was written, the AH-1 is still honorably serving throughout the world with the United States Marine Corps, with no replacement in development. The airframe that is on display at the MAPS Air Museum is a Bell AH-1S Cobra gunship. In developing the histories of the aircrafts located at the MAPS Museum, all available resources are researched and compiled. While most of the source materials are in agreement, some of the information obtained from various sources is inconsistent with the majority of the other data. If this is the case, the information that is presented represents the facts as presented by official sources whenever possible. The MAPS AH-1 Cobra gunship was constructed in November of 1972 at Bell Helicopter in Fort Worth, Texas, as an AH-1G. It was delivered to the United States Army on November 28, 1972, with serial number 70-16084. The aircraft began its service life in December of 1972, assigned to Troop C, 7th Squadron, 17th Cavalry, which was part of the 6th Air Cavalry Combat Brigade, 1st Cavalry Division, stationed at Fort Hood, Texas. On February 22, 1976, 16084 was moved to the Bell Helicopter Facility in Amarillo, Texas, and converted to an AH-1Q by adding the TOW missile subsystem. On April 16, 1976, it was reassigned to the 235th Attack Helicopter Company, located at Fort Knox, Kentucky. On July 12, 1976, the 235th Attack Helicopter Company was deployed overseas to Würzburg, Germany, as part of the NATO European contingent. It remained overseas until March 8, 1978. Upon its return from the European assignment, it was sent to the Corpus Christi Army Depot, where it was modified to an AH-1S version. The S modification provided for a more powerful turbine engine and transmission. 70-16084 then returned to Fort Hood in 3 assignments with the 1st Cavalry Division. Initially, it was assigned to Troop C, 7th Squadron, 17th Air Cavalry Combat Brigade on March 21, 1978. In December of 1984, it was transferred to the 1st Squadron, 6th Air Cavalry Combat Brigade. It stayed in that assignment until July 3, 1984, when it was reassigned to the 4th Squadron, 9th Air Cavalry Combat Brigade. That unit was inactivated on October 16, 1986. In January of 1987, the Cobra was assigned to the 1106th Aviation Classification Repair Activity Depot, part of the California Air Guard, located in Fresno, California. It remained at that location until July 7, 1988, when it was assigned to Troop N, 4th Squadron, 107th Armored Cavalry Regiment of the Ohio Army National Guard, located at the Akron-Canton Regional Airport. Maintenance for this unit was provided by the Army Aviation Support Facility that was located in the buildings currently occupied by the MAPS Air Museum. AH-1S, serial number 70-16084, was decommissioned and arrived at MAPS in May of 1994. The airframe was officially donated for static display to MAPS on May 13, 1996, per a letter of conditional donation dated December 18, 1995. The aircraft had a total of 2,008 hours of flight time at the time of donation. After initial preparation, the aircraft was initially displayed in a grassy area near the entry road. The AH-1 was moved to the blacktop area inside the security fence in 1997 for display and anchored to a concrete pad to prevent movement. On June 30, 1998, the Akron-Canton Airport was struck by a severe thunderstorm, with winds clocked up to 97 miles per hour. The high winds snapped a tie-down on the Douglas C-47 and swung the aircraft's tail into the AH-1, which was parked next to it. The collision damaged the turret shroud and engine compartment door of the AH-1. The C-47 suffered damage to the left wing, horizontal stabilizer, and some internal bulkheads. While much of the damage was repaired soon after the accident, years of exposure to the weather started to show on the AH-1. During the winter of 2013, the aircraft was moved inside the hangar where extensive restoration was started. After repairs and bodywork was completed, the AH-1 was painted in the spring of 2014. Starting during the winter of 2017 and continuing into the spring of 2018, the AH-1 was again repainted, this time adding more detail. Replicas of the 7.62mm minigun and 40mm grenade launcher were also upgraded and reinstalled. After painting was completed, 2 names were added to the airframe in memory of 2 Vietnam helicopter pilots. During the spring of 2019, replicas of tow missiles and launcher tubes were fabricated to be installed on the empty missile racks of the AH-1. These replicas were installed in October of 2019. The next summer, replicas of the 19-rocket 2.75-inch rocket pods were fabricated and installed to provide guests with a visual of the striking power of the AH-1 UE Cobra. There are 2 names memorialized on the MAPS AH-1S, serial number 70-16084, to honor the memory of 2 of the over 58,000 American casualties suffered in Vietnam. John Keenan and Michael Simonoff both served as helicopter pilots during the conflict. John Scott Keenan was born in Lowell, Massachusetts on November 17, 1948. He graduated from Lowell High School, class of 1966, attended Northern Essex College, and worked before entering the service in January of 1969. He was assigned as a helicopter pilot to B Troop, 1st Squadron, 9th Cavalry Regiment, 1st Cavalry Division in Tay Ninh Province, South Vietnam. On April 22, 1970, Warrant Officer John Keenan was killed in action as a result of injuries received during a reconnaissance mission in which he was the pilot of an OH-1A helicopter. Flying over enemy territory in Vietnam during the mission, his aircraft was struck by hostile gunfire, causing it to crash. He was admitted to a military medical facility in Vietnam, where he later died. Frederick Michael Simonoff was born in Spenard, Alaska on September 8, 1947. He completed helicopter pilot training in 1969 and was assigned to A Troop, 25th Aviation, 25th Infantry Division on March 3, 1970. On April 17, 1970, Warrant Officer Simonoff was killed when his UH-1H, serial number 67-17706, struck a wire on the Saigon River near Bien Hoa, Republic of Vietnam, at an altitude of approximately 70 feet. 6 Army passengers and a crew of 5 were killed in the incident. The aircraft was on a courier run, picking up and letting off soldiers along the way. The Bell AH-1 Cobra made for itself a lasting legacy with its showing in the Vietnam conflict. It became a staple of both U.S. Army and U.S. Marine Corps service for decades to come, and further served during notable American military commitments over the next 50 years. AH-1S, serial number 70-16084, on display at the MAP's Air Museum, is painted and marked as it was when assigned to Troop N, 4th Squadron, 107th Armored Cavalry Regiment of the Ohio Army National Guard that was located at the Akron-Canton Regional Airport. The aircraft is on loan from the United States Army's Tank Automotive and Armaments Command, or TACOM, Life Cycle Management Division.